How's it going, everybody? Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Norris, and I'm stoked to be the moderator for what I think is going to be a pretty special hour, or maybe a little less than an hour, because we're getting started a little late today. But I am actually pulling double duty for South by Southwest today because I was a little bit earlier doing today's keynote interview with this lady called Gaga. But I'm happy to be here too for three artists that I am so excited to be talking to, and all of whom I've only recently just met but have been a fan of for some time. In one case, been a fan of for nearly 15 years. I just want to say a couple words about them before I bring them out. We're calling this panel the Nonconformists because I think that that's sort of the best way to encapsulate what is the unifying spirit of the three of them. While gender or gender identity plays a role artistically and personally in some cases in each of their stories, they each have very individual paths. And ones that we're happy to see evolving in front of our eyes, whether it's 15-year evolution, or in the case of a couple of them, we've only known one of them we've only known for a couple years, but they're all equally exciting story arcs. First up, one of our panelists is you may know as the undisputed Nola Queen of Bounce. She is the star of a reality show on the network that currently employs me, Fuse TV, and it is the most successful reality show in the history of Fuse TV, I'm happy to say. It is well underway with shooting for a second season, which premieres in June, which we'll talk to her about. But she is certainly one of the most charismatic performers around, and as far as I'm concerned, has earned her place in a NOLA Music Hall of Fame. Secondly, for nearly 15 years now, which I can't actually believe it's that long, our next panelist has been fronting the amazing, up until recently, Florida-based punk band Against Me, a band that has been uncompromising in its music and its message for many years. A well-deserved, serious fan base over that time. And, of course, only 2 years ago, she added a new and truly inspiring chapter to her life when she came out as transgendered, and that's certainly something we're going to talk about today as well, and has, as a result of that, become a source of inspiration for a lot of people, particularly young people out there. And finally, just because we didn't think we had enough outspoken people, we've got one of the most outspoken people that I know of, a woman who has proudly waded her way through the hot water that mouth has gotten her into at times, but done it with style and coolness, and she's proudly unedited and unfiltered, and it was that mouth along with that makeup and that amazing style that helped her win 2 years ago, become the champion of RuPaul's Drag Race. And she is never shy and always has something to say. So, on that note, please welcome everybody, the one and only Big Freedia, Laura Jane Grace, and Sharon Needles. Everybody.
A sold-out venue. I can really sell them out, kids.
We've packed the room.
Yes,
Sharon.
yes.
Well,
Well, most of my fans are ghosts anyway. I see them all.
You know, it's not it's not always the numbers. It's who's there. It's not how many are there. It's who's
I would agree
there.
with that. My manager would
I would disagree with that. How's South by going so far for everybody? Good, Freedia?
It's going awesome for me. Having a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Lots of energy, lots of fans, new fans coming from everywhere. I'm having a blast.
And doing a lot. You're doing I think you said 3 shows today, right?
3 today and 3 more tomorrow. It's been very busy for me.
Is that, are you just completely worn out by the end of the day, or do you have energy to spare?
I have a little energy to spare. I always keep a little bit for me.
And Laura, as I told you earlier, I wasn't at you guys' showcase at Red 7 the other night, but I heard it was just amazing.
It was a fun time for sure.
Yeah? And you guys are, you were telling me like your fifth time at South by, something like that?
It's a little blurry, but yeah.
I've said, artists who've come here for many years have seen the evolution, for better or worse, of this festival and how just exponentially it's blown up. And other things that some people are maybe more independent-minded people are not so fond of that's happened to South by. What are your thoughts on the way it's sort of changed in that time, the festival?
I've always had a good time, you know? It just seems like it's only gotten bigger, but I don't know other than that. Yeah.
How was the reception the other night? Does it seem to you like everyone knows the new record, which I didn't even mention? Transgender Dysphoria Blues, sixth album, right? Truly amazing album. If you guys don't know it, please check it out. It's moving and it rocks, and it's just we will talk a little bit about the idea behind it later, but people seem to know it now at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that helps, right? And Ms. Needles,
What?
how are you?
Oh, I'm hungover, but I'm great.
Yeah. I know you're doing some of your own gigs here, but also tonight this very cool Lou Reed event.
Yeah, I'm doing the Lou Reed tribute show tonight, and as much as like Lou Reed had an impact on the music I listened to when I was younger, I'm doing it more for Candy Darling. I'm doing Candy Says, and I mean she was a huge impact on me with her work with Andy Warhol and Tennessee Williams, and yeah, she was like the first Amanda Lepore, so I love her.
What
so much.
of all, because obviously there are plenty of iconic drag figures in history, or trans figures in history. What was it about Candy in particular that, I don't know, spoke to you?
She lived in a permanent fantasy world, and she was living in the 70s, but emulating the blonde bombshells of the 50s, and she never dropped character, but she drove herself crazy. She was very aware of what she was and what she wasn't, and strived so much mentally, physically, and chemically to become what she wanted, and it ended up being her demise. So, as much as her facade is very artificial and the way she acted was very actressy, there was such a real tortured soul in there, and I like that about her. And she was, and she was just beautiful too. And I love to look at beautiful people, and she was just so pretty, gorgeous.
How did you get involved in the Lou Reed thing? And
I don't know.
Yeah? No?
I don't know how I end up in it. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know how I got here, but I'm very thankful for it.
And it's a real mixed bag of artists too, from yourself to I think Suzanne Vega's doing it, right? The Black Lips are doing it, which is it's kind of cool. It's really sort of it's a pretty broad spectrum.
Well, and it's humbling too. I act like a badass, but I also I didn't have to work as hard as a lot of other artists. I auditioned for a TV show hosted by, of course, Miss RuPaul, and I was just kind of handed opportunities overnight. So it's really humbling to work with people who've worked for decades on their craft, and kind of puts me in my place when I know that I kind of had somewhat of a cakewalk. So.
Do you were you a big Velvets fan, and what was your when you heard about Lou passing? Were you was it a big moment for you?
I mean, I wasn't shocked. I mean, he's old, but
right.
Yeah. People die. I did it already. Should keep working. But no, yeah. I mean, he was talking about topics that sometimes I wondered if teenage rock and roll fans in the Midwest even knew what the fuck he was talking about, because he was touching on some pretty, deep topics and talking about certain kinds of people that you only saw in movies if they were serial killers. Gender identity is not just showed up in his famous work, but like Candy Says and do 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 do. And I mean, these were major rock songs talking about people no one talked about, unless it was in Psycho, where, of course, the person with gender identity was a killer, or Dressed to Kill, where the person with gender identity issues was a killer, or Sleepaway Camp, the famous horror movie, where the person with gender identity problems was a killer. And in his songs, they weren't killers. They were killer, but
they were killer,
weren't murdering anybody.
Right. Talking about a guy who celebrated walking on the wild side. You guys each in your own way, and I mean, in different ways and in different places or in different parts of the country, did your own thing from a young age. And Freedia, we were talking we spoke yesterday. I think a lot of us have the impression that New Orleans is certainly compared to Northern Florida or Iowa, which originally Iowa, right? Then Pittsburgh for you, that New Orleans is a fairly open-minded, sort of accepting place. Growing up, was it tough or was it not so much?
Well, definitely growing up in New Orleans was not so easy. It's a place that's embraced by the people of New Orleans, but growing up was not easy for me or Katie Red or any of the queens that came out around our time. It used to go so far as where we used to have family members basically trying to fight us because we were gay and trying to say, per se, well, I'm going to beat it out of them, or...
Right, because that works.
It never works.
No, of course not.
It never works. And it's like, you can fight me, you can try to, pick on me. I was bullied, name calling, all of that through high school, through middle school. But it also made me strong to be able to deal with all of the people that I had to deal with in New Orleans. So we had some trying times when we were growing up, but over the years, it started being more and more accepted. Each year would just, they saw that they couldn't change it, and we weren't giving up. When I started my journey, I said that I will be one of the first queens in New Orleans to change people's mind about queens and how they feel about being able to come up to them, being able to confront them, and just be able to shake my hand without being threatened or whatever. And I did that. I definitely transformed a lot of people in New Orleans. Boys will come up to me now, hey, Freedia, how you doing? Or, shake my hand without feeling threatened. And that's very important to me because it helped shape New Orleans a little bit and let people be more open-minded. We had people like Bobby Marchand, Little Richard, a lot of people that performed in New Orleans way before our time and opened the doors for our community. And when me and Katie jumped in the game in 1998 with the bounce, Katie was the first transsexual male to come out with bounce music in New Orleans. People were not ready for it. Like, we were getting slack from everywhere. We were having things thrown at us at different concerts. But that changed over the years for sure because we stood firm on who we were. We didn't give up. And we had a dream that we were trying to follow. And look where we are now.
And is part of that just society changing in general, or was it specifically you guys and having the gradual success you had?
Gradual success, as well as the females in New Orleans, they helped that, shape that as well, because we're embraced by them. They love us so much. And when they're kind of like we protect them, they protect us. And that kind of forms a circle around us from the guys. And like what we do in bounce music, we bring tons and tons of girls out. And as we're bringing the girls out, they're coming to shake their asses. And when they come, the fellas will follow. So it kind of was like an even exchange. The girls helping us and we're helping them. And it kind of made the whole circle go around. Then the guys just started falling in love with us. Y'all got all the girls shaking. Y'all got them bouncing their asses everywhere. Hey, Freedia, I'm rolling with you. So it started changing, and that was the help of the community in New Orleans.
Your style, and I think part of the reason that the Fuse show has been such a hit and people have taken to it so much in such a huge way is it's very inclusive. I mean, there's charisma and a warmth about you that I think lends itself to that. I would imagine at this point your shows are a real mix of straight, gay, male, female.
Yes, definitely.
Right? The
shows are definitely mixed up, and I am very appreciative of that. But when I first started, I never would perform at gay clubs. Like, I wasn't being called at the gay clubs. I was being run down by all of the straight clubs. And that's where I really started and got my fan bases in all the straight clubs. And then I expanded out to the gay clubs and started working them. But it was always the girls that came out to support us and to see us. Same as today. It's more women that support our movement in New Orleans with the bounce music than men. But then the men started to, you know, like I said, whether women or the men may follow.
For
so
sure.
then it started flooding with everybody, and that's how it became a big mixed crowd.
Sharon, I mean, as sort of all welcoming as Freedia's style is, I mean, you can be, I guess it's safe to say, somewhat more in your face in your shows, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, do you?
I'm not here to please them all.
Right. I mean, is your feeling sort of like whoever wants to come to the party, great, you're welcome, but it is what it is, and I'm not gonna change or tone anything down to sort of appeal to.
I used to say I wouldn't change, and now the world is so loud, you know, like everyone's opinion is so heard that, I mean, I can't help but be affected. I'm not. I wish I was Gigi Allen, but I'm not. You know, I don't have that steel set of balls, and I would say I've somewhat adapted. I mean, that's why my album's called PG-13. I was an X-rated act in a PG industry, so I definitely bent. But yeah, I didn't grow up with like Madonna and Celine Dion. I grew up with like Divine and the Pistols and Dictators, and Buzzcocks, and you know, Gigi Allen. You know, people who used really brash vocals and imagery to get a statement across. And there's been times in my career where, you know, I'm just like, I'm really going to alienate myself in this job, but I can't help it. I can't help it.
Yeah. And Laura, I mean, speaking of people who don't back down, or, I mean, you know, long before people even had an inkling, because there were times in earlier records when you would lyrically semi-address gender dysphoria, right? I mean, but even long before that, I mean, you were a sort of, you know, take no shit, you know, kid in Florida, right? I mean, you were, and that was. How early on did you think you'd like to incorporate some of the issues that we now see in the TGB album into your music? I mean, early on, and were there times when you would say, no, maybe I shouldn't even go there?
Sure. I mean, literally every single Against Me record has songs that are me like dealing with gender dysphoria or whatever. And then after a point, it almost just kind of became a game of like, how much can you get away with saying, you know? Like on our fourth record, having a lyric, if I could have chosen, I would have been born a woman. My mother once told me she would have named me Laura. I thought for sure someone was going to like ask me something about that. Like I remember singing it in the studio and even stopping and being like, does anyone think that lyric is weird? And everyone's like, no, it's great. Go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah.
But nothing, never.
And so there were people around, I mean, the rest of the band or other people who would give you their opinion on whether or not you should, how much you should go there.
Well, there's people that asked their opinion, but no one ever really gave an opinion. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then to what extent is this album, because from what I understand anyway, I mean, there's a fictional element to the record too, right?
Well, I said that originally, like to start off with, just because I was maybe a little uncomfortable with how personal the record was.
Oh.
But I mean, it's an autobiographical record.
Full
Some
on.
of it's like trying to put it onto a hypothetical character or whatever, but it's all lived experience, you know.
And you actually started writing the record. That predated your sort of coming out.
I started writing it in 2009. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it come together relatively quickly, or?
I don't know. I feel like every record we make kind of it's a little harder to finish, but I don't know. It was like a different approach. I was writing to like, you know, save my life. I was just trying to not kill myself as opposed to like writing a record to make a record, you know?
Yeah. And do you feel that people are connecting I mean, I don't know what.
I think people really connect. And I think, I mean, like, on the surface, sure, like, having a record that's called, like, Transgender Dysphoria Blues and songs that, like, overtly talk about trans issues, on the surface, sure, it looks like it's really geared towards that.
Yeah.
But I think, like, the experience of feeling alienated, feeling like you don't fit in, dealing with addiction, dealing with depression, dealing with things like that, those are universal issues that aren't just exclusive to any kind of, like, any gender. You know?
Yeah. But like the earlier, like Former Clarity and New Wave, those records, they were introspective in a way that that some punk bands, or a fair number of punk bands, maybe aren't. I mean, and do you think that that kind of introspection that was laced throughout some of those records came from the dysphoria, or was it just sort of who you are?
Sure. I mean, I think that that's colored my whole existence, you know, like, and given me the perspective that I'm coming from in a lot of ways of, again, feeling like you don't fit in from a very young age and feeling like a misalignment, you know? And then, I don't know, for me, like, I think that, you know, what attracted me to punk rock in the first place was the politics. But at the same time, I think that you have to find the politics in your personal existence for it to be real, as opposed to just giving commentary on stuff that you've never lived or have no experience with, you know?
I mean, if dysphoria wasn't even a part of who you were, I would think that politics, your interest in politics, your interest in anarchistic rock, punk rock, would still be there. I mean, that seems to be
sure, but
part
I
of
mean,
you.
I had like defining moments throughout my life. Like when I was 14, I got beat up by the cops and arrested, and that was a moment that really politicized me. And I grew up in a military family on army bases all over the world, so like being around like the military complex from a very young age and having those experiences and getting my ass kicked in high school and things like that were all points along the way where you realize
Getting your ass kicked for just being a rebel, just being a punk kid, or
yeah, I mean, if you have long hair and you're in middle school and people call you a faggot and they kick your ass, you know, I mean, that was just kind of part of it. And especially in a place like South Florida where, I don't know, like I had a small group of friends that, you know, that are the freaks who sit together at lunch and you get picked on.
Yeah, yeah.
Shit happens.
Sharon, was it similar for you? I mean, I don't know what was the town in Iowa that
Newton, Iowa, home of Maytag dishwashers and dryers. Well, yeah, and I mean, like I was old enough to know that I wanted to like be different and look different, but I was innocent enough just not to realize why it was gaining so much attention. And I'll never forget the day. It was February 9th, 1996 was the day I shaved my eyebrows off. And like, I went from like looking like a normal, you know, 14-year-old boy to, you know, overnight just having, you know, pink hair and wearing fetish clothes and wearing full faces of makeup, going to school in drag, just thinking I was just going to blend right on in that little school. And I didn't. But it's nice to hear you at least had a small group of friends. I would have loved some of those.
That becomes armor, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like putting studs on a leather jacket.
It really did. And my dad was a psychologist, and he'd always say, I think you're using this as a psychological mask to hide what you're doing. I'm like, no, I just am really interested in fashion. No, my dad was probably pretty right on that, but I still rely on that costume. I still love her. I love putting her on, and I love becoming her, and I love who she is. And but yeah, high school sucked. Yeah, I only went my first year. I left after my first year. So that's why when people say, "Where did you go to college?" I always say, "F you."
And then you moved to Pittsburgh from there?
No, when I left Iowa when I was like 18, and just kind of bobbled around to like, you know, punk communes and stuff, like in Denver and Tucson, New Mexico, Chicago, and then I was actually like trying to get out of like an 8-month. I didn't want to go to jail, so I left. I left Boulder, Iowa, and kind of ran from the charge, and I went to Pittsburgh. I thought I'd just be there a couple weeks, but I fell in love with it. It's like Seattle, except we don't advertise.
Was that ever resolved, or is there still a warrant out for Aaron somewhere?
I don't care. Just stay out of Boulder when I can.
And Freedia, for you, was school a tough place or a welcoming place? Or?
Well, it definitely was not welcoming as well. I was going through my transformation of, you know, trying to find my sense of style. So I would always have these different hairstyles, and my mom would get called by the principal and by the school counselor. Freddie's hair is causing too much attention. We need to take him out of school or they'll suspend me for 3 days. And my mom was like, well, he can wear his hair how he chooses to wear his hair. Everybody else wearing their hair how they. So my mom would come to the school, fight with the principal. She would come in there and curse everybody out. And I would go to school with my hair, like Marge Simpson, at least, really high, and I would put some color in it. So I was trying to find myself as well. And after, they figured they couldn't do nothing about it, we was even happening, my mom would say, well, if he can't be in school, we're gonna go to the school board. It was going that far. So they wind up letting me wear my hair and do my thing or whatever. And I did have some issues with the kids at school, picking on us, would call me fat faggot, and, it was tough, but I got through it. I definitely got through it. It made me stronger. It made me get back out there and definitely want to fight. Mom would say, somebody pick on you, somebody hit you, you hit them back, and you go back, and I would go back to school, and I wouldn't stop.
Are you surprised if you'd said to yourself 10 years ago, someone said to you that you could be the star of your own reality TV show? I mean, it's not nothing that we've reached a point where someone who presents in the way you do, and don't get me wrong, the music, the shows are so engaging that there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have the popularity you currently have. But I mean, it's not that long ago that I think most producers would be like, it's just she presents herself in a way that is just a bit. I don't know if we can sign on to that. Did it surprise you when they went for it?
It did, but it was a slow process. It was, creeping up at a slow pace. And, like I say, each year it would change and it would get bigger and better. So as time elevated, I just kept myself humble before it got to the point that we are at now. So, over the years when different producers, and it's kind of like when one producer see another producer is interested in it, they kind of want to jump on the bandwagon. So that's kind of where, you get your ride from. When you have somebody who's strong enough, a male producer who's strong enough and wants to work with you and engage and do something on your project, then you have other producers reaching out and wanting to work with you and other people, and they open doors. And, if it's just one big name who's willing to work with you, or one popular person, it opens up a lot of doors.
Has your producers, World of Wonder or Fuse, put any restrictions on the kind of content there can be in the show? The reason I ask that is because I remember there was a moment in Brazil when you guys arrived in Brazil, which I thought was really cute. You look out the window, and there's I guess it's a military academy or training school, and there's soldiers walking around.
All the marching men.
Yeah, all these marching men. And she's like, oh, I like that. Don't ask, don't tell, or something like that. And I was like, that's such a nice moment. But there aren't many moments in the show where you are allowed to be sexual or get into your relationship / personal life. Is that true? Would you agree with that? And I don't know if it's allowed to, but you don't really.
I didn't really in season 1.
Oh.
But season 2, you'll see my boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool.
He's coming on board. Me and him actually was having some issues in season 1 where he was having a little identity problems. So that's why he didn't make it into the show. He actually was in the show. We had got tons of footage. And me and him was having some issues at home. And he was kept going back and forth. Pull me out the show. I'm going to be there this day, and it just was driving me so much. I was like, pull his ass out of every episode. I don't want him in it. We'll try this next year or whatever if we pick up a season 2. So now he's down for season 2. So you'll get to see my personal life a little bit more in depth.
Cool.
And
nice.
Not too much sexual, though.
Well, no, I mean, we're not looking for anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Sharon, your I guess now ex-relationship was captured, was documented for a while there, right? Was that anything you and Alaska had a problem with doing, or?
No.
You guys are pretty open about,
We both wanted to be on TV. That's what it was.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
We knew that the topic of our relationship was going to be documented. We even, World of Wonder even produced, we did a web series called Peer Camp, which was just solely based on our relationship. And then became the demise of our relationship.
That ended up bringing about the demise of it?
No, not the show, but I definitely, our careers blowing up overnight, us being pulled in different directions, not seeing each other very often. And the first year, like, I was handed such great opportunities overnight that there were times where I allowed myself probably an inappropriate rock star attitude that, I mean, I couldn't help it, but it definitely didn't do me any good. So I probably learned more from that breakup in terms of ever being in another relationship again than any other thing I've ever went through. I learned everything not to do.
Yeah.
I totally feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Road trade.
Laura, I'm surprised. I'm surprised
road
that
trade.
no one's waved a check for a reality show in your direction at this point.
Not so far.
Not so far, no. I assume that wouldn't interest you, doing something
I
like
don't
that, huh?
I never rule anything out.
Yeah. Let me
It's
ask
fun
you.
to be on TV. Isn't it?
Oh, you
It
were great in
definitely
that.
is.
Now, I want a
Actually-
secret to how you got a second season.
I second that motion.
I thought I love that segment you did last year for House of Style. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you very much.
that was super cool. Rooting through your closet of I don't think there's anything not black in your closet, right?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
pretty
hard
su-
when you're packing for a tour and you're in the back of the bus trying to find what to wear, and
It's all-
it's all black.
Yup.
I can't tell what's what.
To what extent has coming out as transgender made you or have people wanted you to sort of become a spokesperson? And have you had a chance to meet with younger trans people, and is that an ongoing thing?
Well, I mean, I'm putting myself out there because
Yeah.
I want to talk about it, because I want to represent it, in publicly in the media or whatever, because I don't think that there's a lot of people who do that. But at the same time, I try to make it clear, like, that I don't have all the answers. I'm kind of a fuck up, and, like, I'm just figuring it out day by day. But definitely, like, through social media stuff like Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, like, I've connected with tons of people all over the place. And part of me selfishly putting myself out there is because I want to build a community and meet people, so I know people, because where I used to live, I didn't have any kind of community, and I was really isolated. So, I mean, if people, like, come to me saying, like, oh, you've inspired me or whatever, such and such thing, like, that's what I need from them, is that I'm looking for their help and I'm looking to feel their support.
Is
And
it
what's great is that you are a face for the trans community that shows that you can be down and dirty and punk as fuck. Because what we have in America, we have Amanda Lepore, we have Carmen Carrera, we have Candace Kane, we have beauty queen supermodels, and I think that sets a one-track standard for the trans community
It
in
does.
pop culture, because they're so fucking pretty. Not that you're not a fucking stunner, but you're also showing you can be fucking dirty punk rock at the same time, and I think that's great that trans people know that you don't have to be Carmen Carrera, because it's impossible to look like her. Fucking beauty bitch.
it's probably hard to speculate on what it would have been like to have been one of those kids who, I mean, it's remarkable how young some kids sort of come out as trans nowadays, right? I mean,
Sure. But
and-
I mean, like, I had probably never even heard the word transgender until I was like probably 15 or 16. Like, and when you're young, like my earliest memories of feeling that misalignment, like I didn't know what any of it meant, and it wasn't like you could do like search on the internet or find anything. It was like little bits of pieces of information that you like could find. I probably didn't even hear about someone transitioning until I was like 16 or something like that. And I remember it was like in some kind of sports almanac reading an article about Renee Richards. And it was just like, there was just nowhere to turn to, no resources. So these days with things like even watching people's timeline videos on YouTube or whatever, like, I mean, there's legitimate resources, and there's a community out there that people can point you in the right direction for like, getting health care, for just building a community.
I mean, so it's hard to say, I guess, whether it's better or worse to come out as trans at 15 or at 30. Is it a tough thing to say? Is it just an individual? Because I don't. I guess it all depends on the support system and where
Right. It's
your
an individual
community,
thing.
right?
I mean, for
Yeah.
me in particular, like, I started touring with my band in like 2000, and we played like 200 plus shows a year since then. And like, went through the whole major label thing, which is just like a roller coaster ride. And all of a sudden you're on the other end of that, and you're like, oh my God, I'm fucking 30 years old, and I don't know who I am. Like, and you just, life happened quick.
It occurred to me, I just, when I was looking at Against Me's timeline last week, it occurred to me that I think you guys began, it might have been the exact same year, that this movie that still, to this day, sticks with me, Boys Don't Cry, came out. I mean, and such a very powerful performance, and that rape scene in it is one of the most harrowing things I've ever seen in my life, and truly, on film.
Brutal.
And I was like, and thinking that, gosh, I hope that we've come a long way since then. And then literally a couple of days ago, as I was getting ready for this thing, I read about a story that was just literally a week ago out in California, a suburb of San Francisco, progressive San Francisco, at a aptly named Hercules High School, where a kid, 15-year-old, trans, I think biological male who identifies as female, full-on beat up and sexually assaulted in a stall, bathroom stall at the high school, and the school was in sort of shutdown mode, not commenting about it. And I'm like, man, so maybe we really haven't come that far.
Well, I think, obviously big cities are going to be a little more progressive, than smaller cities. But, I mean, that's what the deal is with being visible. Like, and especially, like, with people like you all, like, presenting it as, like, people who are gender variant are fucking cool. Like, is what makes a world of difference to younger people, having it be something that you're aspiring to as opposed to being something that you're ashamed of or whatever. That's what's important.
I want to touch, see if there's some audience, does that say 5? Does that say 5? Okay. Yep. Quickly I want to touch on one thing and then see if there's any audience stuff. Sharon, when we were chatting, I guess a couple weeks ago, we got into one aspect of either drag or trans conversation that I always struggle with, and especially getting ready for this thing. I even called a friend of mine who works at GLAAD because I was like, God, I don't want to use the wrong language because the pronoun thing and I feel like it, for some people it's an issue, you know what I mean, and a legitimate and an understandable issue, and I don't want to, I mean, I feel like there's you guys have different feelings on that too, the three of you. I mean, as far as I know, Freedia, I mean, you can call me Freddie he or Freedia she, as far as you're concerned,
That's
right?
right, either or.
And then
Call me he, call me she, call me Regis, Kathy Lee. Just call me and book me.
And then Sharon, your thing with language, which I mentioned in the intro, is always, you have a point of view on that I think a lot of, and my brother included, have. We're talking about this recently because I was telling him about this panel. I told him about how you've always sort of been of the mind that, you know what? I mean, I know it's easy to say, get past words. It is easy to say. It's easier to say than when you're a 14-year-old
No, it's not easy to get past language at all. I mean, words carry such strong meaning, usually because they confront you when you are, basically confronting yourself, like words like faggot, words like tranny, words that carry such a big charge. But I have always had a fascination with language, with imagery that carry such strong power because of the power that we've all given them, You know what I mean? So, and I've always used it in is it right or wrong? I don't know, and I don't care, I don't know.
So
just like you said, I don't have all the answers for that. It's hard to be someone that, people look up to and they just assume you know it all, but I don't,
I mean, so has your attitude changed to if to this day, if you get a reaction from someone who says, you know what, I wish you wouldn't use that word, whatever word that is.
Oh, well, I think it creates an open dialogue. I think it creates a dialogue between everyone, but and I'm always open for dialogue. I'm just not open to, I'm not ever open to be told what I am not. That's when I shut down the conversation, because I've just had it too many fucking times that if you come at me with a decision that you're going to tell me what I am, then I'm going to walk away because I would never look at you because I don't know you and tell you what you are. You know, I just wouldn't do that. So.
Okay, we have
My
to wrap
album
this up.
PG-13. It's now available on iTunes.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't mention PG-13. It's been out for close to it was about a year ago. It
A
came
little
out.
over a year.
Yeah. So and another record maybe in the works
Yeah,
for you?
we're working on a new record right now.
And season 2, Queen of Balance, starts in June,
Yes,
right?
and my album drops at the same time.
There you
I love
go.
that damn
Release.
show.
There you go.
Yes, yes.
That
And
show's
the-
like crack.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
And the
you.
It's so
sublime Transgender Dysphoria Blues out now, and you guys are out on the road for a while,
Yeah,
right?
the rest of the year.
For the rest of the year?
The rest
Awesome.
of our lives.
Pretty much. It's all one
And
big
she's
long tour.
and she's living in Chicago now. No more hot, sweaty Florida
I
for
do
you.
not have a winter wardrobe.
There
Unfortunately.
you go.
What neighborhood are you in?
Logan Square.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. What's up?
First, this is a very special moment that you three are having this conversation with John. There are very few people here, but it's a very important conversation. I hope it's recorded. I bet it's not.
It is.
I think it looks like it is being.
It is.
Okay, well, this is because it's good. Grace, I'm going to ask a question that's not a hostile question. It's a question that I really want the three of you to think about a little bit. It has to do with gender queer. It has to do with identity that is not sexual orientation identity. It has to do with gender expression. And the media likes to really make it into a soundbite. And so John comes on the stage, introduces all of you as she. And I know how I can...
Honestly, I wasn't sure.
No, and John, this is not a criticism. This is what happens. And you all get stuck because the heterosexual sort of model of if you're gender variant, then you, or if you're biologically male, then you want to be a girl, rather than just be the sissy grown up or the person whose gender identity is really clearly wants to be something different. So it's an opportunity I'd like you just to talk about. You know, you're all you want to be famous. You are famous. You are famous. How do you actually talk to young people about, you know, not conforming to whatever the expectations of the politically correct trans or transsexual community is, and be like the three of you are?
I think you just have to demonstrate that. You can't really tell anyone everything. You just have to, you know.
Yeah, words are
Be who
very
you are.
unnecessary. They can only do harm. Depeche Mode. I'd rather just have my work speak for itself because I don't know what, you know. I didn't go into this job to be a role model. I went into this job to be a supermodel, but I was granted the opportunity to be a role model, so I'm still learning with them, you know.
And for me, I'm here to inspire, and hopefully I can inspire through my fashion, through my look, through my music, and, you know, let young people get a chance to be able just to be free and be themselves, and not being, they don't have to be gay, they can be straight, and, you know, I want to be an inspiration for all. So it really don't bother me, like John was saying, you can call me he or she. I could have been introduced either or, and not feel offended in any type of way. So usually when little kids come up to me and they be like, or we're in the grocery store and they're like, Mama, he's a man, and I'm like, yes, honey, I am a man. You know, so I want them to be aware of who I am, and but I am free to be me. I don't hide anything. I don't put on a shield for anybody. I just stand bold and stand firm and believe in who I am.
And you really can't tell kids about. I mean, if you're a kid or a teenager, I mean, the roller coaster you're going to go through with gender is going to change. I mean, you can tell them your own adult experiences, but they need their own life. I mean, there were times where I was convinced that I wanted to be a woman. There were times that I wanted to be on hormones. There was times that I wanted my plastic surgery to turn me into a woman. And I think that was just more in my headspace of what I wanted out of this world. I thought I would achieve it by being a woman, and I didn't. You know, so it just takes time. Really, there's nothing you can tell them. You just gotta live this fucking life and figure it out. You know.
Guys,
It's a great question, but I just don't know if it has an answer. At least not for me.
I would love to take more audience questions, but we're getting the heart out, and especially because the awesome Laura has got a show in a half hour over at Stubbs. So if you can make it, the Awesome Against Me at the Spin Party at Stubbs very soon. But thank you guys so much. It was
Thank
great
you.
Thank you. I
spending
feel
time
like I'm on
and
MTV.
meeting you. And
Yes.
yeah, it's only. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it.
Wow.